Hi, in this video, we are going to look at what are some of the best practices for setting up a repository schema in Evolve and Zoom. A repository schema allows you to go beyond metadata in order to manage a large volume of assets and projects that you want to store in Evolve and Zoom repository. As part of this video, we are going to cover the following concepts. What is a project vault schema in Evolve and Zoom, and how to divvy up your repository into one or more project vaults. Next, we will look at the concept of a new project workflow in Zoom and how it relates to folder structure and repository schema. And then finally, we'll look at a metadata-driven folder structure feature that allows you to create underneath a vault a consistent folder structure for your projects. Security is the first most important benefit of using project vault schema. So for example, if I'm a user Mike and my company wanted to restrict me to certain vaults. So these are the two vaults that my company has provided access, a library vault and a Boston agency published vault. So I am Mike and I work in the Boston agency and I am the person responsible in the account for taking the published content. So I do not need to see everything that exists in the corporate repository. I just need access to two vaults. So this is a way Evolve Project Vault Schema can be used to limit access to the vaults. Now this is very different from file system. If you look at file systems, so for example, in this slide, if you see the folder structure here, if you do not have access to a shared directory or folder in your NAS or SAN, you can still see the structure. When you click on the files, you might get access denied. But with Evolve, if you structure your repository using vault schemas, there might be many different vaults, but you might have just access to library vault or, like I showed you, Boston agency published vault, and you would not be even aware of the existence of other vaults. So for example, if I were Patrick and I had access to multiple vaults, when I sign in into the Evolve and Zoom repository, based on the permissions, now suddenly from two vaults, I have access to all the other vaults that exist in this repository. The second concept Project Vault Schema allow you to do is to break up a large repository into logical units. So for instance, it's a good practice to create a library vault. So if you have some shared graphics or images that everybody in the company needs to use, you can create a top-level library vault and put your specific templates and fonts in that vault. You might have team members that are working with a specific client, let's say Evolve Inc., and you might structure the repository to create a Evolve Inc. brand-based vault for all the projects that are tied to that brand. So that is the second aspect of vault schema. And if you go over to our help article here, you will see many of these best practices schemas listed here, like the notion of creating a library project vault or creating more than one vault, advantages and disadvantages of single vault versus multiple vault. The obvious one is the more the number of vaults you have, more administration. You have to have users added into multiple vaults. If you had a single vault, that's the easiest administration model. All the users will have access to that single vault, but now the negative is that you can't separate out access for users that don't need all the files. The permission model in Evolve is rooted at the vault. It doesn't flow down to subfolders. So if a user has read access to a vault, then they have read access to all the files and the folders underneath a vault. So keep that in mind as you define your project vault schema. Next, we are going to look at the new project construct in Evolve, as well as metadata-driven folder structure to automatically create the folder hierarchy using consistent the applied metadata to folder structure. So let's go through an actual workflow. Let's say I was a video editor and I wanted to work on a brand new project that my producer asked me to work on. Let's say I wanted to work on special best spas of Asia, and let us say I want to create a project called Hotel in Asia. I will go ahead and create the project using the template that has been configured on the server. This template will bring in all the bin structure that I need to work on this project. Now, as part of creating the project, I must choose which vault do I want to put this in. Let's say I wanted to work with the Boston agency publish vault. So I click OK, and it's going to ask me for a bunch of metadata. Say this was for Zoom Tonight brand that I was creating a Hotel in Asia promo, and category was specials. And the project name was Asian Hotels, let's say. I can change this to anything. An episode that I wanted to work on was episode number 10. So once I've done that, I'll come over here and remove this checkbox. Skip metadata in path. What that will do is, underneath this Boston agency published vault, it'll create the folder structure based on brand, category, project, episode, shoot, metadata. And then underneath that, it'll create a new Premiere project. So let's see how that works. As soon as I click check-in, a number of things are going to happen. Evolphin would have created a new project. And once the project is created, it would also open up a new empty Premiere project for me to work in. So if you look at this new Premiere project that got created, and you look at the folder structure, Boston agency published, Zoom Tonight, specials, episode 10. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of folders. And then underneath that, actually 5 Asian hotels, and then we have our project. So as a user, I did not have to create any of these folders. It happened magically using this new project workflow with the metadata-driven folder structure. And I can then start working on this project. All the project info populates up here. And if I look at this project in Evolphin Zoom, so if I see it in Finder, I can see my nicely structured folders here with images, media, scripts that I can use to collaborate with others. And the entire hierarchy of folders is automatically instantiated for me. So this is the picture on your project on your disk. And if you look at the map, it will reflect the same folder structure in the map. So if we go over to the map, we can see that this complicated folder structure starting under the brand vault, the Boston agency, that Zoom Tonight, special episode 10, Asian hotels, that entire structure is automatically instantiated. This could have saved you 10, 20 minutes, but more than that, it enforces a consistent repository schema across your organization.